I learnt about my career. Like, the biggest thing that has given me the success that I have been able to have is making my own work. And the first step to that is, because I was always sitting there being like, but I'm not a writer. Oh, well, I didn't write it. You know, we went about getting it on stage in a completely different way. But I think, yeah, in this current landscape, if you have something that you have ownership of, that you enjoy performing, that showcases you and that you can tour on your own back and on your own schedule, that's going to absolutely change everything for you.
Yeah, I always remember reading an article that when Jackie Weaver got her, like, inverted comma, overnight success in America.
And wasn't overnight, was it?
And that's no such thing.
And that's what she said. She was just like, I've been doing this for years, and she did exactly what we've all been doing. She would, you know, work, have money, put on a show, put on this, do it herself, and take the outside opportunities when she could. But that's always the advice that I give as well, is, you know, if you can't write something, then maybe find something that you don't have to pay the rights to, or work with somebody that can write. It's more and more, it's such a collaborative industry, and we are getting rid of that competitive nature where if I'm creating an opportunity, I have to hide it under a rock and hide it under a bushel.
Why?
And well, because that's kind of what we were taught to do for a long time, which was to see each other as threats rather than as contemporaries who can...
As allies, even.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you get your things out there if you hide them and don't share them? I mean, it's like being a professor who has all this knowledge but doesn't really share it with the students as well as he could. What good is the information to someone if it's not shared?
I mean, sometimes you can get a little bit burnt. Sometimes you can work with somebody that it doesn't turn out the way. You can, you know, submit a script that suddenly turns up into the hands of somebody else, and there are things like that can happen.
Oh yes, and that honesty is below the belt. It's not.
Look, I mean, absolutely, but you know, with that in mind, you know, every industry is kind of like that, and unfortunately, people are like that. They're not always pleasant.
Upfront.
Yep, and upfront. But then you, like anything really in life, is you find your tribe. You get back up. You kind of learn from what you did or what happened, and you know, refocus, and you reach out, and you just fall back on the support of those around you, those allies. And I think the more and more that as a creative, if you align yourself with people that are lifting you up, and you have that attitude that one person winning is a win for us all. One person putting a show up is a win for us all, especially in these times at the moment. You know, I used to look at people winning awards in sort of fringe or even in comedy festival and be like, where's mine? Why don't I have them? Even though I have them. Even though I go home and there they are on my shelf. It's very sometimes human to have that idea of like, well, my entire shelf could be trophies, and there will still be those people that I look at and be like, oh, if only I had that. And you have it so easy. But they've got that person who they're thinking about. There's that other people who they're thinking about. But if the whole reason that I'm making work is so that I can get an award to be better than the person next to me or the person under me, then that doesn't sit well with me.
And that's not sustainable either. Like, if that's how you're going about your career, you've maybe got 10 years in you.
Yeah.
And then you'll burn out.
And I think, you know, it's all about know, like, and trust. You've got to know the people, you've got to like them to be able to work with them, and trust them and enjoy working with them. And there's an honesty there. There's a respect.
Yeah.
Respect that needs to be with everybody, and that's one thing that irks me, I suppose. People have to show respect for each other, and give each other the opportunity to prove their worth.
Oh, absolutely. I adore working with so many of the creatives I work with. The sound and lighting designer that we're working with on this play, I constantly will be sending them scripts, and more often than not, sometimes the both of them will be like, "Oh, not interested. Doesn't float my boat." And that's great. I love that because it means that I know where I stand, I know where they stand. It provides me the opportunity to seek out, to work with someone else. And also, you don't feel like you've created a burden for anyone else or they're doing you a favor. And it doesn't create any hostilities, and it means that the work ultimately benefits for it because everybody that's there in the room wants to be.
Yes. Yes, and that makes a whole lot of difference, doesn't it? When everybody that's there wants to be there.
Absolutely.
And you're not challenged by people who are there that don't really want to be there. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough gig, doing that. Okay, now we've got about 10 minutes or so left. Let's talk about, it's a one-man show. And it's going for 6 nights and a Saturday afternoon. And it starts on the 2nd of May?
2nd May, yeah. So Monday, 2nd of May through to the 7th.
Yes.
Yep, at the Explosives Factory.
In St Kilda. In Inkerman Street. I haven't been to this theatre before. So.
Yeah, it's a wonderful new little space. So it's like traditional independent theatres is... as in it's down a little alleyway, up up a very steep staircase, so you don't know what you're going to get when you get up there, and it's a really lovely space for this work.
Yeah.
It's a very minimal space, as in just black walls, black stage. It's a very minimal set that we have, literally just a tent.
Yeah.
A tent.
Just a tent.
So then it really relies on the story and then Eddie's portrayal of Rory, and I don't think for this script it's just a winning combination. I don't think you can find a better pairing than Taddy's words and Eddie's delivery. And then after the weekend, when we really get into the nuts and bolts of the tech, and that's when we get the lighting and the sound, that's when come Monday, it's that itchy moment when you just kind of want to shove an audience in and just be like, look what I did! Isn't this great?
That's exciting. What's your next project after this one?
Oh gosh, I'm working on 15 on the show.
Yeah.
Only 15.
Only 15.
Oh really? Oh, you poor soul.
I know.
I feel so sad for you. 15.
Yeah. Working
Are you mad?
Oh, I know, everybody says that. But after this, I'm taking a show up to Darwin, which I love. I love doing work in Darwin. And then I get to hit the stage again in Sydney with my latest one-person show called Your Silence Will Not Protect You, where I talk about a lot of my experiences with mental illness and my battles with alcoholism. And then I'm producing 8 shows in Melbourne Fringe, directing 3 of those. And then bringing back Your Silence Will Not Protect You for a run in November.
Oh, that'll be good.
Which will be fun here in Melbourne.
You have to let me know when that's on.
And then it starts all over again with 9 shows for Midsummer. And then off we go again.
Is he mad?
Oh yeah, just a bit.
Just a smidge.
I'm a little bit more simple. I'm working on my one-person show, so my own writing, my own perspective.
Okay.
It's a comedy show. I just finished up the first kind of trial run of it, first time ever having it in front of an audience. But that one is called Eddie Paterson is Just Super. Where I got really obsessed with these people called super forecasters during lockdown. Yeah, and they're kind of scientific psychics.
Right.
So
okay.
they're the closest thing that a study has come to accepting that some people have better foresight into the future. These people, you can put them to the test. They can get a lot of shit right about the future, and I tried to prove that I am one.
Okay. In your play, have you done that?
Well, you'll have to come and see it to see if
Well,
I was successful or not.
You'll just have to let me know when it's
I
on
will,
too.
I sure will.
Oh my goodness, what else is happening? Come on.
I know,
Share,
right?
share. I want to see yours, Silence, as well. Yeah, because I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, it's getting published as well, which is really incredible. It's part of what's called the Anxiety Trilogy. So it's a series of 3 works that I've done. This is the last one, so it's all getting published in a collection. And it's funny. A friend of mine dared me to write a funny show because I was starting to not. A lot of my shows are about my life and experiences, and they were not very fun. So I wrote this one, and then I wrote one that was probably the most harrowing I've ever done, and I make a lot of it up on the spot. I've got a spine of what I talk about, but I really
You can ad-lib it.
I do. I ad-lib so that I'm as in the moment as I can. I really talk about what led me to seek out my mental health plan and my mental health diagnoses, and also to very bluntly and plainly talk about my battles with alcohol and with coming to terms with being an alcoholic, and getting people to understand that as well, because it's actually one of my biggest struggles, and I sit in a very angry place with that, because a lot of people still to this day question whether my experiences equal something that you have to self-diagnose, unfortunately, because nobody else does it for you.
And a lot of that, becoming an alcoholic, comes from right back when you were a child. There's sort of bits that would, paradigms.
I don't
habits.
know. It's so I'm 4 years sober now, and I think only the last maybe year of really connections were able to be made as to why.
Yeah. You got to delve deeply into that to really find out.
Yeah, because and it was things like I didn't wake up and drink. I didn't drink at work.
No.
I didn't drink in environments to get through the day. But I definitely drank for a reason. I was somebody that when I started, I didn't stop. And a lot of times I was trying to cure my depressive state with a known depressant, so that wasn't working well. And I do wonder where it happened in my childhood, because both of my parents were raised by alcoholics. So there was never alcohol in our house. There was a very healthy relationship to alcohol, as in you drank when you were 18 and you didn't drink to get drunk. But a lot of the times I used to blame my university, because when I was obviously in Wagga Wagga, my parents weren't there, and all of us were drinking to get drunk because we were 18.
And because you could.
Because we could.
Yeah.
But still, even then, everybody drank for different reasons than I did. Everybody had a some form of limit. But also they weren't destructive. They weren't uncontrollable. They weren't overly emotional. I was very unhinged, very aggressive, very emotional, very uninhibited. And it took me a very long time to confidently sit in a place where I could not self-reflect, but self-identify, because a lot of it was very, very confusing. And a lot of the energy was just to get through the damn day. Like, anybody that stops drinking and says that they feel wonderful are liars. It is awful. It's
First up, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
And still 4 years on, it's a struggle. I don't know quite how many days, but sometimes it can go hour by hour. Sometimes it can just go a week. Sometimes I don't think of it. Other times I'll be that poor guy outside of a pub just scratching their hands down the window, watching somebody drink, being like, does it taste good? Is it giving you that warm fuzzy feeling? Do you feel happy? Do you? Is it nice? Can you tell me about the bubbles and that sparkling wine? Do they tickle your nose still? I don't know anymore.
But you know what? I know quite a few people now that have just actually gone and they don't drink anymore. And not because they were alcoholics or anything. It's just because they don't want to drink anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a choice that we as humans make. We choose to, I don't drink during the week, but I have a drink on the weekends. And so, and there might be a celebration during the week, and then I'll have an excuse to drink. but it doesn't, you know, it's not something that I need there. And I had a conversation with a fellow who was an alcoholic, addicted, and drugs and all those sorts of things, and he now works with drug addictions and alcoholism and all that sort of thing with people. And that was a very interesting conversation to have as well. So yeah, and we have choices, we make choices, we choose to do something. We may not know the reason why we do it, but we do it anyway. And then there comes to the consequence of what we've done and how do we stop it. And then that time is, you know, really delving into your life and your past and your history and everything like that to find out where it started and what the reason is.
Absolutely.
What's the two other parts of the trilogy?
So the first one was I Can't Say the F Word, which I choose in my life not to say. It's the bag of sticks one, it's the cigarette one, it's the slur one, it's the queer slur that I heard my whole life growing up. So it looks at the bullying that I had because somebody said that I still was quite angry and that I needed to let it go. So I explored it, and I explored why I was angry and why I was still carrying this anger towards my experiences in high school. And so I, again, put all that on stage and explore the bullying that I went through and the confusion around that and the times when I was 8 years old, I asked my mother, how do you kill yourself? Because I wanted it to end. And I saw no light at the end of the tunnel because every day I went to school, it was awful. It was...
You got bullied?
Severely. It was heads shoved into a wall. It was burns. It was verbal abuse. It was emotional abuse from teachers, students, everyone. There was no safety.
Yeah.
And then the next one was The Measure of a Man, that looked at my own relationship with my body. And then now we have the anxiety, Your Silence Will Not Protect You.
Wow. Now, we have to go. Thank you so much, Eddie Paterson and Gavin Roach, for being on the show. It's been absolutely fabulous. And I look forward to the show. What's it called?
100 Words for Snow by Taddy Hennessy.
Where's it on?
It's on at the Explosives Factory from Monday the 2nd to the 7th of May at 7:30.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. I'm Faye Waterman. This has been a conversation with Faye, and I will be back next week. It's not going to finish, but anyway, that's all right. We'll deal with that. Sam's on next with Monday Mash after the news. Have a